Hey, and we're back. I'm Andrew.
I'm
That's
Claire.
Claire, and this is No Name. I
It's no
think
name.
it,
You
it
gotta call
it
her. No,
is
you call her
supposed to
no
be
name.
her. It is her though. Like this is supposed to be No Name. Like this is supposed to be her on the album cover.
I wanna, I want to talk about the album cover, and I want to talk about why, as much as I personally don't like the album cover, um, but I do think it's a very, very, very effective album cover for
hmm
the album that we got
hmm
based on the first track alone. So we can get
Okay.
it in a minute.
Okay. We'll get into that. We'll get into that. So we're here tonight because I don't. Hopefully, I'm not going too far out on a limb when I say one of our shared favorite artists released an album for the first time in 5 years, and that is No Name, female rapper from
Rihanna, we're
Chicago.
looking at you. We're
Waiting
waiting.
for Rihanna. I was gonna say if No Name can drop her album,
Rihanna, we're waiting.
Rihanna,
Frank
she should be able
Ocean,
to.
we've been waiting.
Oh God, don't get me started with Frank Ocean. Rihanna just had a baby, so we're probably not getting anything from her anytime soon.
I
So
kept
yeah.
hoping it was going to be an album like Lil Nas X.
Oh no. You thought that was the entire bit? Was that like Rihanna was actually like just setting us up to drop an album and not have another kid with A$AP Rocky? But that's
I thought the first kid was the album drop.
oh, that'd have
The
been so
second kid,
good.
I feel like is probably real because the
Yeah,
first one was real.
yeah. But
No, I
isn't
could
the
logically think it was an album drop, but there was a big part of me that was hoping it was a stunt.
that would have been good. That would have been also probably perfectly Rihanna as well. What I actually saw my first Fendi Savage store the other day, and I was like, I didn't know that they were actually stores. It's here at Lenox Mall here in Atlanta, so I guess that shouldn't be surprising. But I was like, I didn't
How
know
I
they
feel
these
about
were
Lenox
actually
Mall.
storefronts.
Yeah, I didn't know that that was a thing either, but I feel like I would love to like repeat middle school or high school in a world where like you go into Savage X Fenty instead of Pink.
Yeah.
Like a long time ago, there was a tweet that was like, when did you realize that you weren't ugly? You just grew up around too many white people.
Oh.
And I think about like the time that I can pinpoint like the exact age and the exact time in my life. Like I stopped straightening my hair and I
Mhm.
worked out my, my relaxer and my perm, and like
There you go.
I, moved on from my Candace Owens cracked ass, looked like I stuck my head in a fryer,
There you go.
burnt ends, and like I worked away from that. And I think about like the black girl that like goes to pick out like her first like sexy bra in that like
Mhm.
coming of age moment, but she does it at a Savage X Fenty instead of like a Victoria's Secret. Like I think about that experience and like to be a black girl in high school in that world.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. That feels like paths would have diverged in a direction. Your life would have probably
Hmm.
gone in a
Hmm.
somewhat different direction than where we find you now after a 5K sitting on a couch on the struggle bus. So,
Probably just quicker. Like I think I just would have figured some things out a lot
mm,
faster in like a
fair,
lot healthier of a way. Like I just think about like, yeah. I'm not
fair.
saying that like if I had Savage and like their size inclusive experience, I
hmm
like, could have like bypassed the ED, but I am saying it might have helped.
Okay. I could see it. I
Yeah.
could see it. I
I'm
could
just
see
saying it
it.
might have helped.
Might have helped. Might have helped there. Yeah. Maybe, yeah, it sped up the process. Maybe that's a better way to think about it. That like you would have figured out
Right.
some things a lot quicker
I
than you did.
Yeah. It would have been
Okay.
like a little fast pass.
There we go. It'll be a fast pass. Okay. Well, before we get into No Name, I have a bunch of questions for you that I just need to find out from you. First off, though, I don't know if you saw this article I sent you the other day, but a bunch of University of Wisconsin students fell into a lake when a pier collapsed.
The Lake Mendota pier collapsed.
Is this like a known to be like sketchy pier, or is this just like waiting to happen? At some point,
It
enough badgers would pile on.
it rocks.
Okay.
But that is not the first time that many badgers have been on that pier. That's not new.
Okay.
That's not different. So I think it was just time. I think they're not really updating the structural integrity of that pier. It's been
Gotcha.
rickety, but I've been out on it, like we've all been out on it, but it was rickety when I was in college. Like,
Okay. So nothing. Okay. So nothing news there. Okay.
yeah, no,
Fascinating.
not really big news. Nobody was hurt.
Okay.
Um,
I
it
feel
was
like
just
I
not a
don't see a lot of
spectacle.
I feel like I don't see a lot of news coming out of Madison that isn't just like sports, Wisconsin sports related. So I saw this headline. I was like, I need to find out more about this because
It's
fascinating.
yeah.
Excellent. Okay, so No Name. First off, tell me like your relationship with her, when did you hear her? Like, what do you know about her? Like, give me like the skinny of like what has been your interaction with No Name over the years.
I wish the way you ask this question is like because I'm from Chicago, like that me and No Name like have a personal relationship.
Oh
Um,
yeah, no, 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 not
we
not
don't.
like assuming that at all.
I wish we
Not
did
assuming that
so
at all.
bad. I wish we did so bad, but we don't. But
Okay.
like
Sorry,
my
did not mean to
first,
imply like all black females from Chicago know each other.
I feel
That
like
was
we
not the
should
thing.
though, because think about the cool black females. I would know Michelle Obama.
Fair.
I
I've
want to
heard of
be
her.
invited to
Heard
the
of her.
club.
Hmm.
Which we'll get into No Name's feelings about the Obamas at a later point.
Okay.
But I do want to talk to Michelle for
Okay.
better or worse. Anyway,
I cannot make that happen. So you need to talk to somebody else about that.
maybe No Name
Maybe.
if she sees the episode.
There you go.
But no, I like got like heard No Name for the first time through Chance, right?
Hmm.
Obviously through Acid Rap. And then okay, there's this other artist from Chicago that like I feel like I'm not going to use this word correctly, and people that like actually like this genre would be like, "Are you stupid?" But it's giving like lo-fi,
Okay.
I think,
Okay.
but like black,
Hmm.
but not like house music, softer than house music. I
Okay.
feel either way. Mick Jenkins has this song called "Your Love," and a version of it came out in 2015. I think it was re-released in 2020 or something like that. But I love this song. Like she's the type of woman that make you want to fall in love. She's the type of woman that make you want to leave the drugs.
Okay.
Okay. Really, really like him. Um, so when I went through a lot of his stuff, 2014, 2015, she has a feature on one of his songs from a previous album.
Okay.
So like right after she worked with Chance, she worked with Mick, like 2013, 2014, like she's on the come up. Okay.
Okay.
But I wasn't like a No Name fan. Like I
Okay.
wasn't a No Name hater by any means. I can recognize talent where talent exists.
Hmm.
Um, but I just wasn't like No Name, No Name, No Name.
Hmm.
In 2021, a really good friend of mine named Niall Lansana, who was a journalism major at the University of Wisconsin, wrote for the Black Voice, which is our Black student newspaper, is a poet, did poetry in Chicago's LTAB, which is Louder Than a Bomb, which No Name grew up in that scene. Chance grew up in
Yeah.
that scene.
Was
And
this like, is that like the after school, like
it's a poetry
slam
slam
poetry
circuit.
thing? Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. Gotcha.
It's
Gotcha.
a
Gotcha.
poetry
Okay.
slam
I've
circuit
heard of it.
specific to Chicago. And then the teams that, like the team that, wins LTAB, huge, huge, huge deal.
Okay.
It's like, I've heard that he, sometimes still attends LTAB when he can.
I've heard
Um,
that. Yeah.
but
Chance,
like,
you say. You're saying
right.
Chance the rapper. Got it. Got it. Yeah.
Yes. But No Name grew up in the LTAB scene. Niall grew up in the LTAB scene. Like, there's just a lot of overlap there. So he's kind of always been a No Name fan. Like
Okay.
he's kind of known her from grassroots.
Okay.
So we both went to the University of Wisconsin in a program called First Wave, which is labeled as the nation's only hip hop scholarship. But what it does is it brings 15 or so students to the University of Wisconsin on a full tuition scholarship to focus their 4-year college experience on arts, activism, and academics.
Okay.
So I got in for my photography and poetry, but Niall got in for really his slam poetry.
Okay.
So in 2021, either like right after we graduated, right before we graduated, No Name was invited to the University of Wisconsin's literary festival.
Okay.
And Niall got to like interview her and talk with her. And like,
Oh,
of
cool.
course it was still the pandemic, so it was on Zoom. But I watched that, interested in No Name, but really in support of Niall, and my classmate and my peer, and just a really, personally a quality poet and a quality journalist, like interview No Name. And that, like in 2021, is like what got me into her, right? But there wasn't like
Really? Okay.
that much to consume, like, and so now like to get this album, like that was a big deal. But yeah, it was
Mhm.
really like mostly her features, and then yeah, my college experience getting into her like through a friend that was a big fan,
Doing that. Yeah. Okay.
like an authentic fan, like not to be like, oh, he knew her when,
Yeah.
but like he knew her when, so like
He knew her. He actually knew her when.
that was a really cool experience. But so
Okay.
that's how I got into her. It was really like watching other people kind of be
Yeah.
into her.
Okay.
But yeah, that's my story with No Name.
Okay. Nice. Okay. Excellent. Yeah. So like her first record came out 2016. So Telephone came out 2016. Then she did Room 25 in 2018. And that, I mean, I'm looking at that. So like, it's not like I know that off the top of my head, but like, so it's been 5 years before anything else came out, like since the last thing came out, and that was Sundial. I'm about to sound like, well, okay. So like I saw her, like I knew her on, I saw her name on Acid Rap. Like Acid Rap was like, that was like my introduction to especially like mixtape culture. Like, and then I went back through Dat Piff and just like filled in my catalog of like mixtape stuff. But like Acid Rap was like the start of like my digging deep into that kind of stuff. Especially into that Chicago scene, like Chance and Saba and No Name and all those types of folks. But I'm about to sound like the whitest man ever. Okay, so earlier I sounded like the oldest I've ever sounded. I'm about to sound like about the whitest I've ever sounded.
Okay, ready?
I first heard No Name. NPR used to do like 100 tracks before South by Southwest, and they would release these like songs like, "Hey, here are the South by Southwest artists we're excited about," which is a music festival that's in Austin, Texas, and they would kind of like put out a playlist and all that
I'm
kind of
so
stuff.
glad that you said it was a music festival because I thought you were talking about the tech conference.
No,
Like
no, no, not the
big,
tech
big, like
conference.
Silicon Valley, like engineering, like tech conference. So I'm
Hmm.
glad we clarified because I was
Yeah,
not on the same page.
not on the
Music
same page.
festivals are not my vibe. I actually find them
Yeah,
super overwhelming. Um, and I don't like camping. So
yeah,
if there's camping involved, you
yeah.
can help me out.
Yeah, we need to explore this later because I have a lot of thoughts, but I do want to explore that later. Because we're not concerned is too strong of a word, but we're pretty sure like Nari is going to be like a festival kid. So like I feel like I need to like start figuring out
Love.
these things
She
real out
has
sooner.
festival energy. Like I
Mm-hmm.
see it. I
Mm-hmm.
see it.
Yep.
It might be the
And
unicorns, but I see it.
she has it, and like as the day goes on she doesn't really start getting going until about noon, and then about 5 is when she's hitting top gear, and then like 8, 9 right at bedtime is like when she is like taking off. So it's like from an energy level you are just built for late night hangs. So yeah, that's gonna be something. Okay, so I heard so No Name was on this. Diddy Bop was one of the songs that they included, which is off of Telephone, which is probably still like, I mean, all of her albums are like some of my favorite records I've ever listened to, but that was the one that kicked me off. And so here in Telephone, then here in Room 25 and all that, both just like fell in love with those. And then she toured Room 25. So like right after we moved to Atlanta in 2018, she was on tour and she was coming through the Masquerade here. And so I went and saw her at the Masquerade. But this is like around the same time also where she said she was like done doing shows for white people. And so I must say, like, I was a little conflicted going to it. And I even like up to the day, like I remember being like, I don't know if I should go to this or not. I don't know why, if it was just like me being a straight white guy that I decided to go. And I just justified it to myself that I took one of my black friends, and so that made it okay. But that's also probably another conversation for another time. But it was a phenomenal show, and she absolutely killed it, and I loved it. But like, she just dropped off. I mean, she didn't drop off the scene after that, but like, she started doing the No Name Book Club. She's started doing like a lot of prison abolition stuff. Like, she's been like seemingly about the work and about the movement. And she popped up, and I was not prepared for it when I saw it. She popped up on the Coachella poster for this past year, and so she did a set at Coachella this year, and she references that in one of the songs we'll talk about here in a little bit and all that. And so I watched it and I was like, "Oh, this is so exciting! No Name's back!" And she was so nervous and so out of practice. Like, it wasn't a great set by any stretch of the imagination because you could just tell she hasn't performed in
Mm.
who knows how long. But then I was like, okay, well, this is maybe just a one-off thing. She's gonna go back doing her book stuff and her other like kind of justice work she's doing. But then she dropped an album and it was super exciting. And I think you were the first person I texted when I saw it drop and all that kind of stuff because like I did not believe it was real at first.
I saw it drop and I think I was working, so I like didn't text anybody, but in my head I was like, I gotta text Andrew.
Yeah, yeah. It was so exciting, and I have probably listened to this album 50 times since it's dropped, and it's just one that I like very quickly fell in love with, and it's definitely going to be like one of my favorite albums of this year and all that easily, because it is just it's phenomenal. So okay, so any other No Name background, or should we dive into the record a little bit?
I think we can dive in.
Okay. So what do you okay, so then favorite song? Like what grabbed you? Favorite song? Two or I mean, like if it's more than one, like what grabbed you? What grabbed you about it?
Okay, I have
What
two
held you
favorite
down?
songs, and I have to have
Okay.
two because I have one for like the intelligent response,
Mm, mhm.
and then I have one for like the response that like makes me kind of want to shake ass. Like
Okay.
this is the song I like put on when I need to like hype myself up in the mirror, kind
Yep.
of thing.
Okay.
Um, okay, but so I'll start with the intelligent response so that like people think I'm smart.
Sure, sure, sure.
Um, but honestly, Black Mirror, I know
Mm,
it's the first track, but it's my favorite track. Um, and it's because, okay, so I want to say in like the early 2000s, but even before that, like Mary Oliver wrote one, okay, but like really in the early 2000s, like I say this like I'm not talking about like 2005 to 2008, the self-portrait poem became like a thing, became
mhm,
a genre, became a form. Like, and obviously people were writing self-portrait poems way before that's what we were calling them.
mhm.
But like that to me is kind of like the point where like it became like a thing.
Okay.
And what the album cover, like I find it uncomfortable. I
Mhm,
just it doesn't sit right with me. Her face isn't on quite right. It reminds
mhm.
me of like when you use like a copy scanner and like the dust gets all over it, but it
Mm, yeah.
so oddly resembles broken glass. Like
Mhm,
I recognize that growing up in the city, being black, being a black woman in America, whatever category kind of, No Name fits into, like growing old is a privilege and a blessing,
mhm,
that a lot of black
mhm.
women are not afforded.
Yeah.
Um, but aging makes me uncomfortable. So it's like a
Yeah.
personal issue, but
Yeah.
maybe that's what she was going for. But anyway,
Yeah.
I love that the album is a self-portrait. But like I feel like the very first track of the album is a self-portrait. Now, to me, one of the markers of a self-portrait project is that, or a self-portrait poem, is that it's written with a lot of I statements. So I
Mhm.
think it's very interesting that to me, this feels like it's No Name talking about No Name in the third person.
Yeah. Mhm, mhm,
Um,
mhm.
but to me, like this is a self-portrait. Like you took a hiatus and you reintroduced yourself.
Yeah. Mhm,
And
mhm,
I love that. I just think
mhm,
like not everybody needs to do that, but also like we see it in the really big, like very mainstream artists, right? Like, oh, the old Taylor can't come to the phone now, she's
mhm.
dead, right? Like
Yeah. Mhm,
we
mhm,
have this reintroduction to who we are, what we
mhm,
care about.
mhm,
Like right, book club. She's a librarian. She was very involved with a program at one of the library, one of the I think it's like the Herald Library that's in Chicago, but like right, like there's this moment of like a socialism sister, like
mhm,
right, like I'm gonna tell you all of these things that I feel like describe me,
mhm.
but I'm gonna do it in such an incredible like poetic way. Like honestly, this was my favorite album on the track. I just think like it reads like a poem, it
Mhm,
feels like a poem, like, and I love the genre of a self-portrait poem. I feel like this takes me back to like her LTAB roots. This tells me like as an English major, this is a poem I would study, right? Like this is a
yeah.
poem I can point at it and be like, I see the education, I see the form, I see the
Mhm,
talent. It's like I
mhm,
took the form, I took the genre and I broke it and I made it my own. And I did it in this incredible way. And I'm reintroducing myself after my 5-year hiatus, except for
mhm,
like a feature here, a performance there, right? But like, let me remind you who you're fucking with. And I
mhm.
think that is, I don't know. I thought it was a great way to kick off the album, especially
Yeah.
because got a lot of hot takes that follow. She's come under a lot of fire for various like anti-Semitism moments,
Mhm,
right? And so like
mhm,
I think that this is just like, let me remind you who I am, for
mhm,
better or worse. If you agree with me, if you disagree with me, if you're misinterpreting me, if I meant what you think I said, like, whatever, like I
mhm.
just love that energy. I feel like it's
Yeah.
unapologetic. I feel
Mhm.
like It's just really well done. So I'll give you a second
Yeah.
response to that, but then I'll tell you what my second favorite song is.
Yeah. No, I think you're spot on. I mean, and with the album cover, with the record and all that kind of stuff itself, right? Like, I think one of the things like has always been so endearing to me about No Name is that like she is so unapologetically like herself, and she is not afraid of. She's not afraid of too strong of a word almost, but like she's not afraid of her flaws, right? Like she's not afraid of the things that she has or does or is in her life, in the positive or the negative, and she's going to like bear that all out there for you. And I think that is the album cover for me. She's like, for me, I don't know, like I don't necessarily think it's my place or my position to speak at length about like female black culture in America and all that kind of stuff, especially folks that are older myself, of other generations and all that kind of stuff. But like, I feel like this is kind of reflective. The album cover for me is kind of reflective of what the album is just being like, you know, I've aged a little bit. I'm a little bit older. I've seen more things. I've had more time to process through. Maybe she was able to, you know, get to Savage Fenty and figure out some things about her life that she would have figured out earlier if she would have been able to get there at a younger age or something like that. But like, I mean, I think this is her. She's saying like, hey, this is me. Like, this is me, and this is me, my growth and my maturity. But like, yeah, this idea, this reminder of like, this is who I am. This is where I come from. This is what I've done. Yeah, and I think just rolling through some of the lines that she rolls through there, right? The librarian, contrarian, like once again, as you said, like you could see the form, you could see the talent. She's always been nice with the words
Mm.
and nice with the
I
wordplay.
like
Like
can't stop nodding, but I just it's there. It's
mhm,
just like it's just so there. It's like poetry snaps and head nods and amens. Like it's there.
mhm, mhm. And she just has that like, and she just has that cadence to her. Like, and you could tell that she's not that she's not trying to be a rapper, but like you can tell that's not like like where her like her how she like came up and learned. Like she wasn't just like, trying to spit bars just to like kind of get some lines off and all that kind of stuff. That like she sits and she writes and she processes
Yes,
this
there's
through and
such an
like
intentionality to all of her
mhm,
work. And I
mhm,
think rappers that grow up in poetry
mhm,
come come up different.
mhm. Yeah.
Like I also would argue that rappers that come up in Chicago come up different, but I know that's a hot take.
That's
Um,
yeah, but I mean, there's something to it though. There's something there.
like um yeah, there's I don't know, there's something to it. So
Hmm. And I think she's just always been so aware of that, and like she's done that, right? I mean, she's certainly had those like poetic flares and like that poetic like styling and sense to her and her other stuff. But like this project for me feels like the first one where she is like, I'm going to speak with the same like kind of poetic nature that I have, but I'm going to tell you the real truth about myself. And I think the reintroduction part is big because, like, yeah, I mean, we haven't heard or seen anything from her in 5 years. And she is kind of like letting this be kind of like the kickoff, lead off of like, in case you forgot, this is who I am. And right, what is it off? Is it off telephone or is it off Room 25 or whatever? What they still didn't think that a bee can't rap. Like, I mean, she has these lines where she's like, y'all keep cutting me short, y'all keep selling me short. Like, you don't think that I can do this thing, but like, here am I running circles around you again and spinning these bars around you again and doing it. And it is just like absolutely phenomenal because I don't think anybody has that, at least not that I listen to on a regular basis, has that same like poetic license, but also that like pure authenticity of like, I'm just going to tell you exactly who I am and exactly the things that I love about myself and the things that aren't great about myself and everything that's in between and the ways that I'm hypocritical and the ways that I'm not and everything that falls in between.
love.
So, yeah.
Are you
Okay.
ready for my less intelligent thoughts?
Yes. Wait, okay, so we're moving on to the ass shaker. Is that what we're saying?
Yes.
Okay.
And it's
I
like
I
it's
will
not like you can't really shake ass because it's like that's like the energy, but not the rhythm. You know what I mean?
fair. I will
Okay.
say like this is like the perfectly produced also No Name album. Like it just sounds like her. She has this like kind of this Afro beat backing to so much. It
And
feels
that's why
very
it's
like
giving self portrait. The
yeah,
whole album
yeah.
is giving self portrait.
Yeah, the whole yeah, I like that. I like that. You were onto something there because like the production, like it has that like he who not shall not be named with his Black Choir Chicago sound producer, initials KW. It has all
I feel
those
like we can say,
like
I feel like we can say his name.
we can say Kanye now. Okay, good. I'm
I
glad
think
we
we
can say
can
Kanye
because
again.
here's the thing. Regardless of what Kanye has become
Hmm.
and actively is,
Hmm.
he's still a part of the Chicago rap timeline
Yeah.
and the global rap influence. You
Yeah.
still have to put him on the timeline of
Hmm.
who he was when he wrote Jesus Walks,
Yeah.
who
Hmm.
he
Hmm.
was like pre Life of Pablo, who he
Yeah.
was, like you still have to put that on the map.
Hmm.
Like we can say his name without, like, we can have understanding without atoning.
Okay, fair. I
Does
like
that
it.
make
Okay,
sense?
I like it. I like it. Yeah, yeah. I mean, because like her sound is so. I mean, like the production on the record is so Chicago. Like, I mean, you could not tell me this record came from anywhere else in the country.
No, because the
Uh,
backing too of the Chicago, like Chicago blues, right, is a very specific style of
hmm.
blues. We know that
Hmm.
about Chicago blues. And I feel like that influence is here.
Yep. Hmm. Hmm.
Like,
Hmm.
the gospel is here, the
Yep.
blues is here, like,
Hmm.
but also the very highly produced
Hmm.
technical aspect is also here, which is
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
and it's
Which is
so
choice.
blended
Yeah, and and
and
and
such a
and it's throughout the
strong
entire
focus.
record, and it's throughout the entire record, like from the first track to the last track. Like you are picking up just like this is a music. I mean, it's a self portrait, but it's like a self portrait with the backing of Chicago behind her. I mean, because that is what
Right.
her background is, and that's what she's giving us from the front of the album to the back of the album. So yeah, I just had to mention the production because I was like these are just some absolutely classic, perfect, no name sounding
Mm-hmm.
records over and over again. So okay, tell me the ass shaker or
I
the
like Boom Boom.
oh
I like
yeah
Boom Boom
okay
specifically for the line, and like you're gonna have to bleep out so much if you put this on Facebook. So good luck here.
that'll be fine.
Let me clarify too that the Spotify lyrics, because remember I listened to this album while I was running
Oh yeah
my
yeah
day. And so so I was like watching the Spotify lyrics versus normally I listen on Spotify and look on Genius.
okay.
The Genius lyrics for this song and the Spotify lyrics are different. However, I think the Spotify lyrics are correct.
Oh, interesting. Okay, because I have the
Um,
Genius ones pulled up, so maybe I need to pull up the Spotify
the
ones
Genius
while
ones
we're
are wrong. So we're looking at verse 2.
okay.
And I have
Hmm.
um ticky ticky boom boom in a lagoon goon, kissing a poom poom, pussy tasty like foo foo, pussy never been fooled.
Oh, and not so Genius has Fufu Fufu.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting. Okay, tell me more. Tell me more.
So fufu is like I want to call it a grain. It's made from like cassava, so it is a grain, but
Okay.
like it doesn't end up feeling whatever. But it's a dish that the way that you would dip bread into like dal,
Okay.
soups,
Hmm.
anything like that. That's what you use fufu for. It is your
Okay.
carb base for more liquid based dishes, right?
Hmm.
Originated in Ghana. So I, as a Ghanaian American woman, love, we
Hmm.
should talk about this more.
Okay.
But so like to me, just the idea, like I like this is the song I'm gonna hype myself up to. Like this is the
Yeah.
one. Like
Hmm.
it like you're tasty, you've never
Hmm.
been fooled. No matter
Yeah.
what anybody could tell you, you've never been fooled. And here's the thing: what's crazy is she's like, I've never been fooled. I've never
Hmm.
been fooled. 5 tracks down, she's got toxic, and she's like,
Yeah.
"That nigga went and had a baby on me."
Mhm, mhm,
Like,
mhm, mhm,
and so it's like, have you really never been
mhm,
fooled? But
mhm.
it's like the new TikTok trend that's like Delulu is the Salulu, and it's like no, because every woman is like having that experience of like, I've never been got.
Yeah,
I've never been got. Nobody. I've
yeah,
never let anybody disrespect me because that's the head that I live in. Whether it's
yeah.
true or not, I'm sure my best friend could give you a list of the men I have let disrespect me, and she would do it proudly. Um, but in my head, in the head I'm living in,
Yeah.
I have always been doing it right. And I have always been
Mhm,
doing exactly what I've meant to do. And I've never let a man disrespect me, regardless of what
mhm.
any of my best friends try to tell you happened in college. Like
Yeah.
I feel like that is the energy that like I want to carry with me every day.
Mhm, mhm,
I
mhm.
am
Yeah,
delicious. I am put together. I am perfection.
yeah,
I am West African. And I have never been got. And
yeah,
like that is like my hype song that like I'm like living in. And there are like a
yeah.
lot of other nuanced moments to this. Like also, right, if you ask me about a place that made me, I would tell you that Atlanta had a lot to do with who I am today. I would
Mm,
tell you that I would
mhm,
go back there in an instant if I could, right? So this
mhm.
song also like somewhere before the ending is like fuck what they taught and fuck what they teach. Baby, come eat a Georgia peach for free.
Mhm. Bars,
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 bars, and like
bars.
you've got like you are from Chicago, you got the Ghana, you got the Georgia. This
Mhm.
song was written for me.
This was yeah, this might be your self-portrait.
This is
I
my
mean, yeah,
song. Like
yeah.
I'm confused about like I didn't know that we were besties like that. No name.
Yep,
Like
yep.
this song was written for me, and I just find
Mhm,
it like so well done, and like
mhm,
it still has those instances of like just because we're feeling ourselves, just because we're women, like just
mhm.
because we're having this like this like collective like self-empowerment moment doesn't mean we're
Yeah,
not still considering the movement and the struggle. So like she just slips in that line, right? Of like
mhm,
a good cop murdered a BIPOC. I'm black. I've been black. Fuck what you thought. Right? Like
mhm.
again, coming like reminding us who you are,
Yep,
what you stand for. And like,
mhm.
in that moment of like, I'm curious about what she's getting at when she says like fuck what they thought and fuck what they teach. Like who is she talking to in this moment? Like audience is really been a curious one for me in this
Mhm,
because I'm trying to figure out, is this a letter to black men?
mm.
Is this a letter to other women? Is this a letter to herself? Like I'm really, really struggling with audience in this piece, which is also
Yeah,
why I'm like really interested in it because I love something that keeps me guessing. I love a
mhm.
poem you can't dissect. I love a poem that keeps things to itself. Um,
Yeah,
love a good secret. Um, and so like I'm, in this moment, I'm like, what talk to me about who are you talking to? Who is they
yeah,
and what are you worried that they have taught the person you're talking to? And that is so interesting to me because like I feel like if you're going to talk about sex and you're going to talk about your pussy, like you're talking to black men or you're
mhm,
talking
mhm.
to men, right?
Yeah,
It's like she has another line where she's like, I'm with your girl, but I don't even like girls like that. And it's so funny. I'm
yeah.
like,
It's so good.
it's so funny. Like she's also
Mhm,
just funny and I'm so interested in that. But yeah, this is
mhm.
like the song that like less intelligent because I can't really dissect it, but more just like hyped.
Yeah,
Very hyped. Like this is the song that to me, I'm sure if like No Name was like, this is what the song is really about, and like you're being kind of disrespectful and thinking that it's only about like sex, right? It reminds me of like Kendrick's like I wish my dick was as big as the Eiffel Tower so that I could
oh,
fuck for 72 hours,
mhm.
which like people are like, I think people didn't really understand that piece. I'm very passionate about this too. I've had this conversation with my boyfriend and his friends many times. Because I bring it up. I find reasons to bring it up in a conversation.
Yes.
But that song is satire, right? He
Mhm,
is going after black boys of our generation, saying like, you
mhm.
need to be less sex, drugs, and cars and sneakers and more Martin and Malcolm.
Yeah,
And obviously, I think that's a very, very polarizing take. And I obviously think that there's room for both. But to me, I'm also wondering if that's what No Name is doing with this track.
yeah.
Like,
Mhm.
and am I doing the, Andre 3000 of like, y'all don't want to hear me, you just want to dance.
Yeah.
Um, which is
Mhm,
very, very possible. And I might just
mhm.
want to dance, but this is the track that I like just want to dance to.
Yeah, yeah. Well, yeah, I mean, and she is not necessarily said it in that same she hasn't necessarily articulated it in that same way, but, like, in some interviews after this record's call like, dropped and, like, the kind of I think most of it is directed kind of towards some of the J electronica stuff and all that, but, I think some of it also she's been saying that like, oh, she's lost a lot of fans. Like this has been a very polarizing record. Like not everybody loves this record. Not everybody's been on board. Not everybody that like was her fan is still her fan. Like are really a problem, like really having a problem with that. And I mean, and getting back to Kendrick too, right? At the end of is it at the end of Good Kid, Mad City, or is it at the end of is it after the record that came after that that I'm blanking on, right? Like right, he has this
You're talking about the Pimp a
the
Butterfly?
Pimp a Butterfly, like where he has a whole he has that line there at the end. It says, you know, will you still be a fan when the shit hits the fan? Like, and I think that's a little bit of what she's calling us to. I think it's at the end of Pimp a Butterfly before he gets into that like Tupac interview and all that kind of stuff that he does there. But like the concept, the idea is that like, hey, like I'm going to be giving you my authentic self because that's what I understand an artist to be, is to be giving you my
Yeah,
authentic self.
it's the Pimp a Butterfly.
Yeah, is it all? And it's that last track, isn't it? Isn't it off of whatever that last one is? I'm blank on that. But like it has that line. It's like, will you still be a fan when the shit hits the fan? Like when I actually bare my soul to you and like am an artist and like am putting myself out there, like, are you still gonna fuck with me? Like, are you still into this? Like, are you still or do you just want the song that's gonna be the fun ass shaking song? Like, are you wanting just the fun stuff and me at my like most, you know, commercially accessible, or do you actually want me to make art for you and for me to actually lay out what I'm experiencing and what's happening in life? And I think that's the kind of stuff I love. Like I love mysterious artists. Like I love artists where like I don't really know what's going on here right now, but like you are taking me into this world, like you are relaying these ideas or thoughts or opinions to me that like I have no context for, but like it's things I've never thought about, like, or it's things I've never considered in this way or in this light before. And like, where is this thought process going to take me, and where is this going to go for me? And I think yeah, and I think she does it perfectly on that. Like, I think she does it perfectly on that one, and I think it has that like I think it might be a little bit of a commentary on just modern female MCs specifically. And I mean, I once again, I don't necessarily feel it's my place, the speaker, to comment very deeply about like the culture and like how folks interact with each other and all that kind of stuff. But like, I feel like, especially over the past few years, we've had a prolific amount of female MCs that have come out, and a lot of the stuff that a lot of them are releasing is very sexual in nature, which is great and good. And like, there's a place for that. Men have been doing this for centuries, so like women should be able to as well and all that kind of stuff. But it feels like she is hitting back at that a little bit as well, of just being like, this is what you're all talking about. There's a lot more going on. And even with that idea of like, well, I've never made a mistake, it's like, but then like, yeah, a couple of tracks later, she has Toxic, and she kind of like lays out everything that's
Like
going
she
on there.
also like I think she also believes it about herself, right?
Mm,
Like I think she also wakes up in the mirror and like, or wakes up and looks in the mirror and like, these are her affirmations. This is her, I am
mm,
healthy, I am wealthy. You know, like we all need those moments. We all have those days, right? Of like,
yeah,
sometimes it has to be about the body.
yeah,
Sometimes it has to be about the body, right? And so I think like it's just very like the track is just so physical,
mm,
right? Because like even as you get into like Good Cop Kills BIPOC, like we're talking about the body. We're talking about
mm,
dead bodies. Like to me, this track is just so, yeah, I don't know.
mm,
It just
mm,
feels, it
mm,
feels physical. It feels
mm,
tangible.
mm.
Um,
And
you
like one of the things I think she's so good at, I mean, like she's good at holding up a mirror. And I think that's what she's doing on this track. And I think that's what she does throughout this entire record, is that she very much is comfortable holding up a mirror and kind of calling folks, including herself, on kind of on her shit and on their shit. And like, or the places where they are not maybe fully the person that they thought they are or say that they are or whatever, but in a way that's also like, I'm guilty of doing the same things, right? Um, and I think, right, I mean, I don't know how much we want to get into the Jay Electronica and and the anti-Semitism and the shots at Zelensky and all this kind of stuff. Like there's a lot going on in his verse. And so I don't know how much we want to get into it. I do like what she said. She's like, I'm not going to apologize for a verse I didn't write. That's fair. You still put it on your record. So
Yeah, I
I
feel like I don't know, like I'm hearing like my grandma and my aunties say like show me your friends and I'll tell you about yourself.
mhm, mhm,
You know, you
mhm.
are the company you keep.
Yeah.
So to me it's like
Mhm.
there has to be this, you can't wash your hands of that.
Yeah, it's not a great look as much as she wants to try to pass it off. It's like, yeah, sure, one thing if like, okay, it's not a line she wrote, not a verse she wrote, but at the same time, like you chose to put this on your record, like you chose to keep
Right.
it in. So,
This is
but if,
this is your song and he's a
mhm,
feature. You are
yeah,
responsible for the way that your guests act.
yeah, but I do like earlier on balloons, like I do love balloons as a track, and I do like
Yeah,
kind of
okay. I
how
want to
she
hear
is holding
I want
up.
to hear your top track or two.
Yeah, okay. So for me, I think yeah, I have a couple of ones that I absolutely love off of this one. But there's just a couple things that like came out of this record that just like really caused me to pause.
Mm.
Um and really caused me to kind of have to stop and kind of like think through and process through a few things because as kind of as I said a minute ago, like I do feel like she's holding up a mirror to a lot of just not just black culture but to society at large, and I think those are some of the pieces that I was interested in. But I love that like um I was really like captivated, and I paused it right after I heard it for the first time, but like working through the second verse there in Balloons, where she says, in the land before a lamb, monasteries and Narcan, casual white fans who invented the voyeur. Fascinated with mourning, they hope the trauma destroy her. Why does everybody love a sad song, a dark album like? Tell me your homie dead, your mama dead, your brother bled along the street, the corner where the Walgreens and White Castle is. Ooh, yeah, we know that you miss him. And if you sing about his sister, then we buying a ticket for real, front row, center. Um, and just saying like it can't tell if it's genuine or if it's just consumption. And I think that is just like an incredible social commentary for where we are as society right now. Is just being like, if you lean into the trauma, if you dial up the trauma, if you dial up some pieces, like you are going to become popular. Like it is going to catch on and people are going to be talking about you and your story. But is this genuine? Like, is this really how you're telling your truth and telling your story? Or is this just you doing this because you know it's going to sell and people are going to buy tickets and people are going to listen to records and give you streams and show up at your shows, buy the merch, whatever the whole thing is? I thought that was just like a genius commentary and a genius line.
I'm so intrigued that you read the the statement like she can't tell if it's genuine or just consumption as a critique of herself, because I still thought that we were critiquing the audience. Like to me, I was
Mm-hmm.
like in this place where she's asking like, do you really care about me or do you just want to
Mm-hmm.
consume me? You
Yeah.
know, like I thought that was really interesting. But also, yeah, right, because she ends that verse with she's just another artist selling trauma to her fan base. And I think
Mm-hmm.
like
Mm-hmm.
what's hard and where the dissonance is for me is like, so you recognize that to get big, you have like to get big at some point there has to be a level of selling out.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But then like later in the album she takes stabs at Beyonce.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's why I think so that's what I think the interesting parallel is because she draws that same thing both about society writ large, but then also personally about herself, right? Like that was the other one. So like I love Namesake. I think it's a great song. Like that is definitely one that like grabbed me the first time I listened to it and all that kind of stuff. And yeah, she says the entire thing, I ain't effing with the NFL or Jay-Z, propaganda for the military complex. Like,
The flyover and the list of people that have done a Super Bowl show
mhm.
was that was
So
crazy.
good.
That
I
was
mean,
crazy.
because also like these people, and because these are people that don't necessarily are critiqued very often, right? You don't hear a lot of people critiquing Rihanna. You don't hear a lot of people critiquing Beyonce. You don't hear a lot of people critiquing Kendrick. Like, I mean, if those are not three of the biggest, like almost untouchable people, especially in hip hop and in music and fashion and culture and all those things. She calls them by name specifically for doing the Super Bowl halftime show, and
And
then
but includes herself on the list.
and includes herself on the list.
And that's what I love about this when you look at this completely under the lens of an album that is a self-portrait, because we all have those like moments of cognitive dissonance. We all have those
Mm-hmm.
moments where
Mm-hmm.
we're like, I know this is bad.
Yeah.
I need it for me.
Mm-hmm.
You
Mm-hmm.
know, right? Whether it's the company we work for or
Yeah.
the things that we purchase or, you know, the shows that we consume, the things that we post, the stores that we shop at, like whatever it is,
Mm-hmm.
all
Mm-hmm.
have that thing where like we're willing to make our concert. And like I also think that earlier, I think it was off camera when we were just talking, but oh no, it was on camera, but like you had said that she was done performing for white people. And
Mm-hmm.
she addresses that right here where she says, I said I wouldn't perform for them and I somehow fell in line. And
Yep.
like I think that right, she's grown up. And that's like what this like old woman version of her on her album cover, like she's
Mm-hmm.
gotten to this point where she's had a harsh dose of reality
Yeah.
and she's realized that like if I want to make it big, if I want to play stages like Coachella and I want to do a Super Bowl halftime show, or I don't really want to do a Super Bowl halftime show, but I want to get to the level of somebody that's asked to do a Super Bowl halftime
Mm-hmm.
show, right? Like that
Mm-hmm.
like, you're not making it in the, like it makes me, it like brings me back to like Berry Gordy and like Motown
Mm-hmm.
singers of like,
Yeah.
I'll give you 100 for all your songs. Like,
Mm-hmm.
like, and then that moment of like, you sold all your songs for $100, like nobody
Mm-hmm.
told you better, right? And like, there's this moment of like, you have to sell out to make it big, but
Mm-hmm.
also like you don't have to sell out and make it big, and we should be supporting each other in a new
Mm-hmm.
way. And like I think that she gets into that with like Beauty Supply, right? Where she's like, I'm gonna buy
Yeah.
black no matter what. And
Yep.
I'm gonna support black no matter what. And it's like, it's just this insane back and forth of what goes on in your head of like,
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna buy black no matter what, but also like fuck all these black people that sold out. And
Yep.
like it's the constant like back and forth in your own mind. And she gave that to us so honestly. And she's taking a lot of criticism for it. But like we all have those thoughts.
Yeah.
Like let
Mm-hmm.
those without sin cast the first stone, because
Yep.
like we're all doing it.
Yep.
The only difference is that she put it out for all of us to consume.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think that's the one of the things that I love about this. I mean, No Name in general, but about this record specifically is like she is so willing to show how she's complicit in the same things that she's critiquing. And just the dichotomy that's there, and just the reality that this is what life is. And this is what life is in the world. And just to be human in the world is to live with these morally ambiguous decisions we make each and every day based off of, you know, pure instinct, pure vibes, pure, desperation, pure, selfish, whatever it is. Like she is so willing to not put herself up on a pedestal and to like lift herself above, which I think is part of the critique she has for some of these other artists is like you put yourself up there as this thing, but then you're doing the same damn thing that all these other folks are doing. You are no different, Rihanna, Kendrick, Beyonce, you're no different than anybody else who's selling out to corporate America, to the gun lobby, to consumerism, to capitalism, to whatever it is. And she is right there. Um, and yeah, and I think Beauty Supply once again, like, right, Kendrick, once again, to get back to Pimple Butterfly and all that kind of stuff, right? Kendrick has that track there at the end that's called Complexion, where he's talking about all these kind of light skin, dark skin things and black culture and all that kind of stuff, and kind of coming to love yourself. And I feel like that's kind of what Beauty Supply does in a way as well. Like I don't necessarily have ass shaking songs, but like the song that like I keep coming back to just to put on just because like I love the production, I love the sound, I love everything that's about it is Beauty Supply. Like that is just such like just such a vibe, like just such a such a track I feel like I can just come back to time and time again because like it grooves so nice and she is like perfectly in her pocket that entire track. So I would say that'd be my favorite. Namesake, Beauty Supply, I think are like my 1-2 off of this record.
Because like again, she's just having this such a deep struggle, a deep and personal struggle with identity. Like what gets me is like at the end of Namesake, right? She keeps saying like I don't need no name.
Mm-hmm.
And it's this idea of like I don't need to be this famous stage presence that I've put on for myself. I can just be,
Mm-hmm.
I honestly don't know if it's pronounced Fatima or Fatima.
Mm-hmm.
Because I've only ever seen it written down when people talk to her. She goes by no name. Um,
Oh gosh, yeah, I guess I don't think I ever knew. I don't think
so
I know what her government name is.
I couldn't. It's spelled like Fatima or
Okay.
Fatima, but I don't know how. I always ask people like when they say their names, I say, well, how would your parents say it?
Mm,
What does
yeah, that's a
mom
good.
or dad? Well, what do your grown-ups call you? Because kids will be like, oh, however you say it is fine. And I'm like, it's not fine.
Like, it's not fine.
So I don't know how her parents would say it, how her grandma would say it, like, but I think that that's really interesting. Of like, I don't need no name. I don't need this
Mm-hmm.
stage presence. I'm good without her. I
Mm-hmm.
I'm still humble. I have beginnings. I have the memories that I had while I was her, and I have my weed, and I'm good to go.
I'm good
Right.
to go.
But then there's also this idea of like, I, right, because Genius writes it out with a space. I don't need no name.
Mm-hmm.
To me, also meaning like, I don't need to be famous. I'm
Yeah,
going to keep no name. I'm going to
yeah.
keep being an artist because I need that. That's who I am. But I don't need to be famous for it. I
Mm-hmm.
don't care if you don't want to listen to me. It's got Doja Cat energy, like,
Okay.
without being so unhinged and like bitchy.
Yeah.
Like, sorry
No,
to
that's
say,
fair.
but like, right, like it's got this idea of like, instead of Doja Cat, right? If Doja Cat's like that, I don't need you. No name is more the like, I'm good,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like, and so I think it's interesting, like, because Genius now, but now I think like the Genius lyrics and Spotify lyrics have been different, right? So like Genius writes it out like no space. I don't need the fame. I don't need a name for myself, but I do need no name. I
Mm-hmm.
don't need no name, but I need no name. Right. So I'm
90 note it.
curious
Mm-hmm.
how Spotify would write it out.
Well, right, yeah, and I mean, and just how that ties into the just ties into the track. I mean, namesake. I mean, like, yeah, how she's playing off of this idea of who she is and what her identity is and all that.
So Spotify also
Um,
writes it with a space, but I think that the wordplay there is again going back to her poetry writing
mhm.
unmatched.
And it's intentional. I mean, like, you cannot tell me anything that she does is not incredibly intentional, right? Like, right, Little Wayne can rattle off how many bars off the top of his head, but it is just, it's just stream of consciousness. Like that is not no name, right? She is meticulous in every single thing that she writes, and she does not mess around with anything. Is she Ghanaian? Do we know her? Do we know any family heritage?
I don't know.
I mean, not that it is incredibly helpful, but Wikipedia does not say much. Doesn't say anything about heritage wise, but I was just curious about that, thinking about the fufu and some of these kind of things and the name and all that kind of stuff as well. Middle name is Nyeema. I don't know what the heritage, I don't know what that, there's something that's there behind that. So, okay. Did you have any other thing you wanting, any other thing? So her middle name's Arabic, which I guess could be.
Yeah, I saw that too, which to me, like Fatima or Fatima also gives
Hmm.
um Arabic or Islamic
Hmm.
roots. Now
Yeah.
I don't know if that is in the way that like Islam exists in West Africa or in the
Hmm.
like the Nation of Islam. I couldn't tell
Yeah.
you which, for her, like which it comes from.
Hmm.
I haven't read anything where she's spoken on that herself.
I haven't, but I mean, once again, getting back to the Jay Electronica verse, like he mentions Minister Farrakhan, so like
Yes.
he directly name drops the Nation of Islam and everything in there. And coming from Chicago, like that certainly tracks and all that as well. But
Yeah, so I don't know. I honestly don't know that much about her backstory beyond Chicago.
hmm
I couldn't tell you about like her ancestry or her heritage, but I do think it's really um I think it's really fascinating and definitely something to consider. Um,
hmm
but yeah, I
um okay, so then do you have favorite bars? Like, are there like maybe like not necessarily the song maybe doesn't move you so much, but like there are bars that just got you, or there are verses that you dropped and you're just like either as a poet or as a music
I'm
fan
sure
or
there
whatever it
were,
is.
but like I was so caught up in the big picture of this album
hmm Yeah.
um that I didn't and here's what's crazy is like I feel like there are a lot of albums and we can speak really particularly about Toby, right? You knew we
Mm.
weren't going to make it through one of these and I wasn't going to bring up Toby. Um I feel like with Toby, I'm like, that line was so cold. Like
Yeah.
when I talk about Toby, I talk about power lines a lot. And
hmm
that's not to say that he's not a cohesive artist because he is working really hard to present a cohesive project, right? He's
hmm
got his branded color scheme and like
hmm
moments did something to me, right? We've been over this many times. Especially the at the crib version. Um, but I have not seen a cohesive rap album in this way in a very
Mm.
long time. In a
Interesting.
very long time. Like this album goes together and really demands to be listened to together to get the full
hmm
picture. So I feel like obviously there's some really quality writing and we've talked about some of the double meanings, a lot of the
hmm
wordplay, um you know, but to me like if you the fact that namesake and beauty supply are on
Yeah.
top of each other is
Yeah.
crazy.
hmm
Like
hmm
is crazy to me. And like the fact that like Boom Boom and Toxic like exist on the same
Yeah.
wild.
Yeah.
How can you look me dead in my face and tell me you've never been fooled and then tell
Yeah.
me that this man had a baby on
This
you?
baby had a
Like
baby on you, and now
it's
you want nothing to do with it, and now you just want to
right.
like you weren't light skinned enough to be wifey, and seemingly whoever he's with now, she is very happy to raise this kid, and she is very much okay with
Right.
whoever this is raising this kid. But I mean, yeah, phenomenal juxtaposition
Yeah. Like you can't like
of life.
it doesn't I think like and I'm not going to say that's why she's getting a lot of criticism and why this work is so polarizing. Because honestly like anti-Semitism deserves to be investigated
hmm hmm
and should be
hmm
pointed out and talked about and stopped, right? So like I'm not saying that like looking at this work like it's an individual thought process isn't important or like
hmm
but also like if you're only listening to namesake and you're not getting beauty supply like it's
Yeah.
perfect foil, you're
hmm
missing the point of the album. And to me
Yeah.
it's like we all have those moments where like we fall short. I have things that I say that I know are like deeply entrenched in internalized anti-blackness or internalized homophobia. I have
hmm
things that I say as a woman that was raised a Christian that I'm certain are anti-Semitic thinking,
hmm
right? Like
hmm
like I know that I have my moments where I fall short and I also have my moments where I'm like I fall short on this and I'm not fixing it.
Yeah.
Like we all have those like
hmm
opinions that we tell like our close friends and our partners and all those moments where I say safe space and then say something
Yeah.
completely balls to the wall,
hmm
unhinged, something I
hmm
would literally be canceled for if I put on Twitter, right? Like
For
we
sure.
all have those things. And if you think you don't have those things, you're a liar. So
Yeah.
like to me, what does it mean for her to just put those in the track?
Yeah.
And I also understand that like sometimes you have to cater your art to the lowest common denominator because people are going to take it and they're going to run with it.
Fair. Fair.
And like I do believe that when you are a celebrity or celebrity adjacent or whatever, that you are held to a higher standard and there are different
Mhm.
expectations of you than just like being a person.
Yeah.
I think that also is maybe different in a world where anybody at any time can go viral for anything.
Yeah, I would say that that has shifted. That has definitely shifted probably over the past 5 to 10 years.
Yeah,
Social media, COVID, all those types of things and all that kind of stuff. But
right.
yeah,
But I think like there weren't any power lines just because this is a complete work. This is
yeah.
an album that demands you to listen to it from start to finish with no skips in
Mm,
order. I am
yep.
notorious for listening to everything on shuffle. Um,
Oh,
I
oh,
listen to I
how?
listen to everything
Why?
on shuffle. I like surprises. I like
Oh.
shuffle.
I
Um,
mean, like if I'm gonna sit down and listen to an album, like I need to sit down and listen to it from front to back.
the is first listen is always in order.
Okay.
Every listen after that, for the most part, is shuffle. Because
Interesting.
here's my thing. I don't listen to a lot of I don't sit and do enough uninterrupted work, whether
Mm,
like it's driving or a workout, or I'm like, oh, I can listen to music on this project for like a little bit before I've turned it off to focus. If I always listen to an album in order, I will know the first 4 to 5 songs of that album really well and
okay.
none of the rest of it. So
Interesting. Okay.
if I like really love an album, it's in shuffle. And that's so that I get like every part of it. Because if I
Okay.
get in my car and I know that my drive to work is, 15 minutes, I'm going to get the same first 3 tracks and nothing else from that album ever. And like in theory, could I
Fair.
just start it in a different place? And like, today we're doing the middle 3 tracks, tomorrow we'll do the next 3 tracks for sure. But instead, I'm going to put it on shuffle.
This super. Okay, that's fair. I'll buy that. I'll buy that. But yeah, but I think you're spot on that this is an album that has to be listened to from front to back, start to finish. This isn't just like I'm gonna not that you I mean not that right. I put on beauty supply all the time just when I'm just like working on stuff just because I want to hear it. So like you can certainly do that, but like I think to digest the full thing. Um, and I know that I know I've mentioned this to you before off air. And so maybe sometime the great compromise will be I'll get on TikTok, you listen to the podcast Dissect, because I love this guy's work because like
Uh, but
he
here's the
treats
thing. Dissect has a TikTok and I consume their media in
yeah,
small chunks because that's
yeah,
what my attention deficit can handle. So
that's
like
fair.
the compromise is that I followed them on TikTok.
Okay, fair. Okay. So I'll get on TikTok
But
sometime.
anyway,
But no, but I love that because he treats hip hop as like these are complete works. These aren't just like playlists. These aren't just like compilations. These aren't just like mixtapes. These aren't just like a bunch of one off bangers. Like there was intentionality that this artist sat down with when they wrote and put together this album from start to finish. And like he's done, Frank Ocean and he's done Tyler the Creator. I mean, Tyler the Creator has very quickly risen up my favorite artist just from the way that he goes about constructing complete albums. But he does it with Kendrick and all these folks. And I think like I don't know if Sundial will ever end up in the rotation there for Dissect and all that kind of stuff. But I feel like this is one of those albums you can sit down with and go on the journey and break it down of like how this is a complete album and a complete work and not one you can just kind of grab and take as like a one off or I'm gonna hold on to a couple of these tracks but throw away the rest type of a thing.
right.
Um
This is an
I feel
album
like
that has no skips, not because it's pretty damn close to perfect, but like
mhm,
not because it's perfect, but because you simply can't, it's not the work with if you don't have the whole thing.
yeah. It doesn't exist. Yeah, it doesn't
Like for
each
me, it would literally be like, I'm gonna give you 3/4 of the Mona Lisa.
yeah.
Like, what do I do with that?
Yeah, the tracks don't work individually. Yeah, you need all of them together as a collection to be able to see the full picture that you won't be able to get if you just have one or the other. I like that. I didn't think about it like that, but that makes a lot of sense. I like that. I like that.
And
I
we didn't talk about the outro, like the ending, like the last song,
mm,
but like now I got a lot of flack for this. Sean, if you ever see this, I know Sean was my thesis professor when I was a poetry major.
mm,
Um, And Sean had a big problem with the fact that I love things to come full circle and I like to wrap my work up in a nice pretty bow. Nothing can be left
Mm,
hanging. I love some closure in my own work. And I get a lot of flack for that because like you like why? Right. But I love that this last track feels like closure. I
mhm,
love that you've given us this cognitive dissonance. And then this
mhm.
last track really just to me says it is what it is. And I also find it weird that the last track ends with two other people.
Yeah. Mhm.
Like she doesn't finish talking for herself. But to me, if I consider like her last moments on her own album, the ending, not that like Common or Ayoni, again, words I've only ever seen written down but never pronounced.
Yeah, I was gonna
Um,
say I don't think I'm really familiar with who that is outside of
um,
this record.
but like if I don't um if I don't get into their verse and I just let it end with like when the world blows up, that's it. I don't care. I'm gonna
Mm,
talk my shit. Like I like just so interesting. Like her really like quoting some of that criticism. Like, couldn't
mhm.
they write raps to say that, like, like just this how she raps so good. She ain't even work on it. Like just these moments of like her, mimicking, like mocking the haters is just like
Mhm,
whether you think that I'm all of, whether you think that I'm all of Namesake or I'm all of Beauty Supply, or I'm
mhm,
all of Boom Boom or I'm all of Toxic, like whether
mhm,
you cannot bear to let those sit in perfect harmony or
mhm,
perfect dissonance, I don't care. I'm gonna keep
mhm.
talking.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
whether you want to talk about the anti-Semitism and you want to talk about Louis Farrakhan and you want to talk about, I don't care. I
Mhm,
don't care. And like I'm not saying that that's like a quality attitude to have, but I also think like we could use a little bit more of that, in
mhm,
the world. I watched a TikTok video where this mother, um, she had two or three girls already and she was pregnant again.
mhm,
And she was like talking about her haters and she had said something like, oh, I bet, the haters were like, oh, I bet you're praying for a boy this time, or like, oh, I bet you're hoping for your boy. And she said, thanks, we're just praying for a healthy child. And the
mm.
comments lit her up. They were
Really?
like, yes, um, all the comments were like, oh, mom of an unhealthy child here, just to come in and say that like all children, regardless of illness or
Mm,
ability, are worthy of love and like value. And like just all the like she was just like berated in the comments. And like I watched it as like a stitch where this other
mhm.
guy was talking about it, but he was like, we can't even like just want a healthy baby anymore.
Yeah.
Like we can't like because I'm a big believer in like accessibility and inclusion, right? Like,
Mhm,
but I also am like, we can't pray for it. Like, what are you supposed to pray for?
mhm.
Like, because then my question is like, what are we praying for in the pregnancy? Are we praying that like,
Yeah.
because the thing is like, you're gonna love your kid no matter what, or I mean, you
Yeah.
hope to love your kid no matter what, right? So it's like, are you asking God like I pray I love my child no matter what? Are you asking, so like to me, there's this moment of like
Mhm.
everything is polarizing. And I don't say that in the way that Republicans say it, where they call us like liberal snowflakes and they like
Yeah.
us we're offended by everything. But I feel like we're getting into a point where it's like, at what point it's like at what point do you just say I don't care?
Yeah. Yeah.
And I love that about this ending.
Mhm. Yeah. I yeah, because I feel like that once again just like reflects back to the artist in her of just being like, this is what I have to express. This is my thoughts. These are my stories. These are my ideas. These are my opinions. I'm not I'm not, and once again, like she is doing it for the commercial aspect of it, right? She is doing it to put out a record and to make money and to do all those pieces. But I think at the end of the day, she's like, I'm not doing this. I'm not chasing anything with doing this. I'm doing this for myself. I'm doing this to like share what I am and what I'm about and what I'm going on. At the end of the day, if you like it, great. If you don't, that's great. Like I don't care either
I'm
way.
a pallbearer to this fake nigga error.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
I want my fake era to die. It won't, because I am a Gemini and a chronic people pleaser. But if I could wish for one thing in my next journey of life, I would love to know who I am, regardless of external opinions, right?
Yeah, yeah,
Like,
yeah, yeah.
a
Um,
pallbearer to this fake nigga era. Like, Common goes hard all the time. I love Common. I've told you my story about the one time I saw Common in an airport, right? We know this about me. Um, I hope he doesn't remember that. I'm sure that happened to him, like, whatever. Anyway,
Sure, that happens to him a lot.
yeah. For those of you that don't know the story, it really, there's no story. It's just that Common walked past me in O'Hare Airport in outside of Chicago. Well, actually, the airport is technically in Chicago because the city wanted the taxes instead of it going to, like, but anyway, they basically like gerrymandered Chicago, and now it like just holds the airport in like this weird random pocket. But anyway, the point of the story is that Common was getting off a flight in the airport, and I saw him, and I literally pointed like this with my whole finger, and I just, and he stared at me for so long. Like, we locked eyes, and he stared at me almost as if he was like, say something, do it, I dare you.
Just
And
do it. Yep.
I couldn't. I was frozen. And I literally, like, I trapped him, like, because we
Mm-hmm.
were walking like this, and
Mm-hmm.
so
Mm-hmm.
embarrassing. So embarrassing. You could have drove a truck through my mouth. My jaw was on the floor. Like, I was, and so yeah, I really like Common. And
I
I
mean,
hope he
and
doesn't remember that, because I think about it regularly and it is embarrassing.
probably happens a lot. But I mean, he is a gorgeous man. There's also no doubt about that. He
Yes.
is. He is.
And my like love of my life for most of like my child, like when you're like a little kid, you like your like little
Mhm,
crush. Mine was Shamar Moore, and that went like well into high school and like a little bit of
mhm,
college, and then like I
mhm.
finally realized he was in fact cringy and also like not famous anymore. And
There
I
you
was
go.
like, all right, like we gotta, he left Criminal Minds, and I started to like
Mhm,
wake up. But I feel like Common, like that like bald like brown skin man,
mhm, mhm.
mm,
So
he's
good.
doing it, he's doing the thing,
So good.
and in like a
I
better way
s-
than Shamar Moore is doing it.
mhm. I saw him in Baltimore at a show. I don't remember what tour it was on for him and all that kind of stuff. But he definitely did the whole like bring somebody up from the crowd, a female, and sits him on the chair on the stage and like dances around them and removes some article of clothing and the whole thing. And it was just Common. He's also jacked. Like he is.
Is he really?
Oh yeah, like at least when I saw him. Granted, this was 10 years ago, so like
Not me
I'm
opening up
sure
Google.
maybe a lot has changed, but at that point he was just absolutely ripped, absolutely jacked, and it was insane. So,
I
okay,
Oh my God.
yeah, like Common is jacked. Like
I had no I think he's really, I don't know what hell,
my
oh, this is
man's.
when he was training for Hell on Wheels.
Well,
I
yeah,
don't
I
know
think
what
that
that
yeah, probably a
is.
lot of it is probably his music career, like his movie acting stuff and all that kind of stuff. But like he is.
Um one of the small bands that I like, um one of their guitar player, he calls it tour bod.
Oh yeah, fair. That
Like,
fair might be.
there's a different kind of body that you have when you're like touring,
Mm-hmm.
because you're not really eating the way you're supposed to be, and you're lifting heavy equipment, and you're basically doing a
Yep.
workout for several hours every single night without fail. And you're in the city, you're in all these different cities, so you're walking and just getting all this
Yep.
exercise because you want to like
Yep.
see the city and do stuff. But yeah, he called it tour bod.
Might have been what it is.
So could have been that, but also some of these other photos, I genuinely had no idea. I feel
Mm-hmm.
like he's not the thirst trap like kind of guy, so this is like very interesting.
Oh yeah,
Um,
because that's not really how he puts himself out there. Like it's
no,
usually kind of like the
it's not at all how he puts himself out there. So I genuinely like, I thought Common was just like scrawny and wore a suit.
nope, not in the slightest. Yeah, I mean, because he usually has like
This was such a
just
good, of all the things I learned tonight, this was the
that's
best
a good one.
one.
That's a good one. Right, because he usually has like the sweater and like the little cabbie hat and like
Yes,
looking
he's
like he
very
could
like he's homey.
like yeah,
He's the one you want to bring home to your parents. He's like
yeah.
not this picture of himself in from like the screenshot from Hell on Wheels where he's got like his hands taped up and they're gonna like
Mhm.
fist fight.
Yeah. So, okay. I feel like we've
Hell
touched
on
on a lot.
Wheels, a
We've
slave
been.
movie.
I'm not sure.
I've never
Um,
heard of this movie,
I don't think I know that one at all.
but uh, I'm gonna regret googling it. But I'm
Okay.
curious. Anyway,
Before we go
yeah.
too far down the common rabbit hole, which I'm excited about, but I feel like we touched on a lot. I feel like we've hit a lot of the big pieces. The last thing I wanted to get your opinion on is there is one track, and this is again one of those things that came across that like maybe stop in my tracks and maybe like have to really stop and like yeah think through and process some things. And it's right there smack dab in the middle of the album. It's the potentially interlude.
But yeah, we have to talk about it, but we didn't talk about it.
We haven't talked about it, and this might be a future conversation because like I feel like this idea and this concept that she hits on here is like has much bigger pieces and ramifications and like really impact because like but like it's kind of like she gets into kind of a verse later on and all that kind of stuff, but like the chorus that she kind of keeps coming back around to, she says, people say they love you but they really love potential, not the person that's in front of them, the person you'll grow into. And like right, this album doesn't have like a lot of just like one-off bars to it, but like I felt like that was maybe one of her best bars of this entire album, was just like laying out flatly and plainly of saying, from my experience, from like her personal experience, seemingly, is that like people always, and I think we naturally do this as human beings, we project what we see somebody becoming as opposed to being okay and comfortable and happy with the person that is right there in front of us. It's always about with this growth mindset. And I think she is saying that that's a bad or a toxic mindset to have, that we are exactly the people we are right now. This is who we are, not who we're going to be down the line, but who we are exactly right here in this moment. This is us. This is humanity. This is the good, the bad, the flaws, everything all wrapped up. But all we can ever do when we see somebody is think about, well, what could they be, or will they be, or should they be? Where are they going to go from here? Not just being with, just sitting with that person exactly as they are. And I think that was just a phenomenal, phenomenal thought.
Yeah, we probably didn't talk about this track because I didn't want to. Because this was a call out. This was an
hmm hmm
unnecessary call out. You know me better than I think a lot of people know me. And you know that like I've already said on this call, like I'm a chronic people pleaser. And
hmm
I had like before we got on camera, I talked about how like I'm not doing great.
hmm
Um, and a couple of nights ago, like I had this like stress cry, but like everything constantly comes back to like a better a better insert whatever could handle
hmm
this better.
Yeah.
Whether you were
Yeah.
stronger or smarter or more capable, or you like, there's this idea that like, and this expectation that like I am not and will never be enough, right? And so like
hmm
what I love is potential. What
Yeah.
I love is growth. I am like a self-help, self-identity, like I consume that. Like
hmm
I'm so gullible for the next trend. Like
hmm
I'm always wanting to be, smarter or like faster, better at my job, better at being a girlfriend. Like,
hmm
and I think the reason for the stress cry and the breakdown this week was so much of like, I feel like nobody's getting me at my best. Like
hmm hmm
work is not like work is very much consuming me, right? But like work is not getting me at my best. Um,
hmm
Probably because there's too much of it, probably because I'm overwhelmed. Like work is getting me overwhelmed and stressed and rushed, right? And like Ahmad's like not getting me as like the girlfriend that I want to be and the girlfriend that like I know that I can be,
hmm
which sounds like so ugh. If you
hmm
know well, you know me, this is like the fact that I care about this is a big deal.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
are so weird to say out loud. But right, like I'm training for a half marathon and I did run a 5K today, but I ran a 5K today and I was supposed to run 9.5 miles. Because that's
Mm,
when we were on the training program and I didn't run for the last 2 weeks that I've been stressed with work and other things. Right. So like my body, like I'm not showing up for my body and for like something I committed to and I'm excited about. Right. And
mm,
so like I love growth and I love potential and I expect that out of myself. Um,
mm,
and for the most part, I will say that I expect that out of others.
yeah. Hmm.
Um,
Hmm. Hmm.
I expect you to be on the same, or nobody's the same because I think I'm better than everyone else, right? But like even in all this, like I think I'm better than everyone. But like yeah, we didn't talk about this and we didn't unpack this because like this is the one that I was like, I don't like this.
Yeah.
You said things that hurt my feelings.
Hmm.
Right, like as you said earlier, she picked up a mirror and I
Yeah.
didn't like it.
Yep.
Um, this
Hmm.
one didn't make me feel like Boom Boom. When she picked up a
Yeah.
mirror, Boom Boom, I was like, this song was written for me.
Yep.
The interlude was also written for me, but I don't want to admit that. I don't
Don't
want to
admit
do
that.
the
Hmm.
cognitive dissonance that she's doing.
Yeah.
Um, right, because like this, and it is this like it is revolutionary because we love because like right, we've not there's nothing wrong with potential and growth and who you are in the future when you just say that.
Yeah.
But when you put in the idea of like toxic self-help culture, hustle culture,
Hmm. Hmm.
um, and this idea that you always need to be doing something, right?
Yeah.
Like that's why I love the Nap ministry and I find the Nap ministry so profound of like
Hmm.
rest and
Hmm.
present moment and kind of all these things, right, are so important. Like it's getting to a point where like rest is revolutionary,
Yeah.
especially for Black people and Black
Yep.
communities that are overworked and underpaid and all of these things, right? And so like us, and like when you look at the song from the lens of being a Black woman, it's like they didn't love you for who you were when you were, in the hood.
Hmm. Hmm.
They
Hmm.
love you for who you could grow into when you
Hmm.
could get out.
When you get out. Hmm. Hmm.
Right. And
Hmm.
so like,
Hmm.
yeah, it's a lot. This one was a
Yeah.
lot. I was like, yeah, we didn't talk. You notice
Yeah.
how and you called it, you clocked it. Of course you did,
We
because
jumped. You,
and I'm me.
yeah.
Yeah, I didn't sit with this song because this song was hard to sit with. I was like,
Yeah.
because I'm the person that what she's talking to herself, but I also know that like if you were just a little bit more pretty, if you were
Yeah.
wrote a little bit more like Kenny, you would
Hmm.
have a life worth living. It's like,
Yeah.
why can't you have a life worth living right now?
Yep. Hmm.
Like,
Hmm.
but I'm that person, and that is how I talk to myself. That is how, like, that's how I talk to myself. I'm work like it's not generally how I talk to others, but like occasionally, like it's how I think about others.
Yeah.
Like it's this actual idea that like if you just tried a little harder, and it's
Hmm.
like I don't actually think that, but that's like the conditioned response that I have to both myself and others. So yeah, this one
Hmm.
was a rough one. We
Yeah.
didn't get into it because I don't like it. I feel
Yeah.
attacked.
Well, yeah, yeah, and I think for all the reasons you said and so many more, like I don't think I'm really prepared to speak at much length about this, because I do think there is both a lot of um, right, like her holding up a mirror both to herself and but then to us, the listener, and all that kind of stuff as well, and like feeling very both called to the called to the carpet and all that kind of stuff for myself and my own personal life about how I see myself and how I view myself and how what I'm happy and comfortable with and what I'm not about myself, right? Like all those lines, more pretty, wrote more like Kenny, that you would have a life worth living. That like, yeah, that it's someplace off in the future. Um, because I think that is both as an individual, but as a cultural level and all that kind of stuff as well as like right, it's something that right capitalism points us towards, and I think this is very much getting back into her anti-capitalistic socialist tendencies and all that kind of stuff, as well as saying that like you were everybody seemingly chasing a dream that is not actually going to bring you anything, like isn't going to bring you happiness, it's not going to bring you anything, but yet we're all still kind of chasing this thing. And I think as a society and as a culture and as an individual, like we all do these things, like if we just did this we would be happy, things would be better, things would be smoother. And I think what she points to, I think like so many of the dichotomies and so many things that she kind of holds in parallel with one another on this record is that like there's going to be good and bad no matter what, there's going to be highs and lows no matter what. Things are going to go your way and things are not going to go your way. What and no matter what. And for me, this is I think this is one of those pieces that's just like antithetical to the gospel and antithetical to the good news that I feel like I believe and I understand as being a Christian, is saying that like, yeah, we are, perfect, but also flawed exactly as we are right here in the here and now. And exactly as we find ourselves in each and every moment, we are both, right, to take the old Lutheran phrase, right, saint and sinner, right? Like we're both 100% saint and 100% sinner. Like it's not a 50-50, but like this is exactly who we are right here in this moment. Um, and I think a little bit also of just kind of like the personal thing for me is like um a reflection just of, right, I'm a campus pastor. I work with folks that are 18 to 22 mostly, that are preparing for whatever their life is going to become once they leave campus. Like, Georgia Tech isn't going to be the place where they're going to be staying for their entire life. So there is this sense of like, this is only a stopping point in who you are going to be becoming in the future. But how do I not then just look and see and view people as, what are you going to be coming later down the line? But who are you right now? And what is this person right now need that's in front of me? Not how am I helping you get to the next place or the next steps in your life? Like how are we taking care of you now and not, you know, pushing you forward down the line towards something else? And I felt very, yeah, once again, like both from a
That's such an
personal.
interesting, like being one of your like former interns and knowing that like I did a discernment internship, like
Mm-hmm.
I have never thought of what you just said, like like I'm I'm struggling to find the like it's just
Yeah,
so, because how
I,
do you
I haven't.
how do you do that?
Yeah, I
Like,
haven't. I haven't wrapped my head around it either, and that's why, like, I don't think I spent a lot of time. We spent a lot of time talking about this track and about this concept, because, like, I think it is a very antithetical thought process in a ways, as opposed to a lot of how we understand, specifically in the church, growth, development, discernment, calling, all those types of pieces. And that's probably a different conversation for another time. But
well, and I'm curious if you feel like the same way that you feel about your students. Like, do you feel that way about your own kids? Like, how do you balance as a parent, as a father? How do you
mm,
balance like I have to raise you.
mhm.
You must grow up, right? And
Yeah,
I want you to grow up into a good person, but how do I also keep and protect your childhood and this
yeah,
moment and let you act your age and let you experience what is like now? Like, how do you balance? Like, I'm so curious
yeah.
how you balance that.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I don't think I figured that out. I don't think I have an answer for that. Like, I don't think I have that figured out. Because right, one thing that I recognize, and my partner Colleen pointed this out to me and all that kind of stuff. Like, as soon as Nari was born, like my expectations of Elijah were a lot higher. And like
Mm.
my expectations of the older sibling changed from before she was born, because it was just him at that point. But now it's like, okay, well, we have this other one we need to take care of. We have this other newborn baby. Like, you need to be a good influence. I need to be a good influence, but also like you need to be able to like take care of yourself a little bit more now, as an older kid does, because we have this baby. And not realizing that like
Which we have
those
no
aren't
frame of reference
thoughts.
for because we're only children.
Yeah,
We're like, we
which
don't
certainly
know.
we have no frame of reference for, but also like Elijah didn't have any frame of reference for. Like he doesn't
Right.
have at right. I mean, they're 2.5 years apart. So like at 2.5, 3, he didn't know what it was meant to take care of a baby and what their needs were and how all that went. But yet I still kind of projected these expectations on him that like, oh, you get it now that you're not the baby anymore. If you, of course, understand what we're doing here. And it's like, of course not. Like, of course, that's a ludicrous assumption for a kid to have. But I think that's been one of the realization pieces for me, is that like, yeah, it is both this idea of, well, we need to prepare you to be a good functioning human adult in the future, but also like, you're 7, like let's just enjoy being 7 without any of that and enjoy who you are now. And I think it is a lot easier for me to kind of think about that with the students on campus than it is with the kids in my house. And I don't know exactly what that means.
Yeah, I
I
think that I
don't know what that
asked
looks
because I
like,
was
but
intrigued that you went to your job and not to your home.
yeah.
But one feels arguably less personal.
Well, sure. Yeah,
And if you're
I'm sure
not
there
letting me
is.
run, I'm not letting you run either.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, I think there is. I think there is something to that, right? I think there is something like, right. We take piano lessons, we do soccer, we do these other things to round us out because we think that they're going to help us out when they're older, and we don't allow. I mean, the specifically my kids, but then like the royal kids as well, like be kids in a lot of these places because we feel like it is always about how are you progressing to the
I
next
laugh
place.
because I right, everybody knows about me, but I was a competitive gymnast, right, for 15 years.
Mm-hmm.
And even now, like I don't have kids. I don't want or expect kids in the near future at all. But Ahmad like already calls me Tiger Mom. Like I'll say or do things and he'll be like, okay, Tiger Mom. But
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, no, that's me. Like the
Mm-hmm.
urge and the expectation to like raise your kids how like you were raised, or like with the expectation like betterment, or
Yeah.
like right, all these things. I'm like, yeah, that's gonna be something
Mm-hmm.
I'm to work on big time.
Mm-hmm.
Because like
Yeah.
I have this idea of like, what is the point of doing things to be mediocre or to
Mm-hmm.
have fun? Like if we're
Yeah.
not competing and we're not working to be the best, like why are we doing it?
Why are we
Which
doing it?
like that's for
Mm-hmm.
crazy people. Like
Yeah.
those are the moms they make documentaries about when the kids are like, yeah, I don't speak to my mom anymore. Like
Mm-hmm.
those are
Mm-hmm.
not
Mm-hmm.
the moms that are like, look at this beautiful relationship I have with my family, right? So like,
Yeah.
something to work on, but I have time for that. But yeah, I
Yeah.
am definitely again the person that loves growth and potential
Mm-hmm.
and values it pretty much more than anything else.
Yeah. And yeah, and I think it's interesting you say that, especially about the parenting piece and all that kind of stuff, right? Because in one of the things I was reading about No Name, doesn't sound like she has much of a relationship with her mom, and like that was a stressed and strained thing, and still seems to be um, a little strained. Um, but yeah, I think once again it's pointing to that dichotomy that like we're supposed to grow. We're not supposed to be the same people we were, right? The person I'm going to be tomorrow when I wake up is I don't think should be the same person I was today. I would hope that I would be taking stuff from today into tomorrow that's going to help me be a better person. And so there is that growth, there is that potential, there is that idea there, but I feel like there's still just something about this that is incredibly convicting of that idea of potential and growth and who we're becoming as opposed to who we are right now. And yeah, I need to sit with this one a lot more because I do think there is something really here with this one for me.
Yeah, for sure.
So
Mm,
and maybe it is just getting away from like, well, if you were just a little bit more pretty, wrote a bit more like Kenny. I'm guessing that's Kendrick Lamar. I'm guessing who she's
I
referring to there.
assumed.
That
Yeah.
was my assumption. That you would have a life worth living. And maybe it is just this comparison hustle culture thing that like you can have potential about you personally getting better and being better, but divorcing that or stripping that from this idea that that's what's going to make you happy or bring you happiness. Like you should be doing it for yourself. You should be looking to grow from the person you are into the person you're becoming, not because it's going to make you into not that it's going to give you a life worth living, but that's going to make you be fully present where you find yourself each and every day and where you are. And I think that's where I'm hoping that's where I'm landing on that for tonight.
Mm,
So
I like it.
okay, we've talked at length. Any other closing thoughts, closing takes?
No.
Excellent, excellent. Okay, well, if folks actually make it all the way through this, and this wasn't just a lovely conversation Claire and I to have with each other, and you haven't listened to the record, definitely go and listen to it because this will 100% be on definitely my top five, if not top three
Just send
records
it
of the
to those
year.
guys that run that podcast that you like.
Oh, boom, yeah, I'll send it to
And see
them.
if they like invite you on or something.
There you go, or invite you on. You're the writer.
Yeah, but I'll wait for you to turn the camera off before I say the next thing.
Fair, fair. Okay, well, for everybody, go listen to some No Name. Enjoy
That's
Sundial. Go back
okay.
through her back catalog if you haven't already, because it is a delight.
Also, like, just gonna continue to shout out Mick Jenkins, just
Okay, fair,
because I will never not ride or die if you're from Chicago.
fair. We'll take it. Next time we find an album we love, we'll come back and we'll do this again.
It better be soon.
Maybe. Better be soon.
5 years.
5 years.
Get a Rihanna
All right.
album.
Oh, Rihanna, we're waiting.